Hello everyone and welcome. I am so excited to be here tonight with Cassie Greutman. We are going to have such a wonderful chat and I cannot wait to hear her answers to some of these questions. I've got some questions that I have for her, but I also have some questions from some of our Summer Reading Challenge participants. So thank you so much for being here, Cassie.
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be
Yay!
here.
I'm so excited. We've got some people filing in now, and I'm super excited for that. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you the first question, which is pretty simple. Will you just remind us who you are? Tell us a little bit about the book that you're going to be giving away. And maybe you can even share with us like a favorite scene or line or character, something like that from the book.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. So I'm Cassie Greutman. I write mostly fantasy, but every type of book I write is all about family. Found family mostly because those are my most interesting types of families where everybody's so different, but they all come together and care about each other. And I just love that so much. It kind of reminds me of my own family, actually. So, yeah. And about my favorite character, that's really tough. That's like asking who your favorite kid is when you have kids, but I'm gonna go with Nina because
Oh, it
she's just so
does, I guess.
sweet and she just ends up doing the right thing for everybody. She's kind-hearted and loves everyone. So yeah, I think Nina would be my favorite.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. And that is a hard question. Sorry. That really is a tough one.
Yeah, you say we'll start out easy and then here you go through lobbing me a tough one.
Oh, true. All right. Well, hopefully they won't all be difficult. Oh, that's great. And as you guys can see, Regeneration is the book that she is going to be giving away a copy to one lucky reader this week, whoever has the most points at the end of this week. And I have to just remind everybody, last week we had a three-way tie. And so it came down to a draw. So it could happen again this week. So y'all make sure that you get your comments on the posts and you watch things like this. Make sure you comment below if you're watching the replay. And if you showed up live, like some people did, you get 20 points, which is super exciting. All
That's a
right.
big boost.
So it is a big
Yeah.
boost. All right. So like you said, you write fantasy fiction and you write urban, portal, and a little bit of epic. So, and we've already had some conversations going in the comments about this. Could you explain the differences and similarities of each of these? And maybe even tell which of your books fall into which category, because you have more than one series of books,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, sure. So urban fantasy tends to be set more like in our own world with magical elements. So, supernatural creatures like werewolves would go under urban fantasy, or even just magic. It doesn't have to necessarily be supernatural creatures, though they generally do show up somewhere. In my urban fantasy, it's the Fae with their magical powers, because I wanted to keep our world as close to our world as it is. So there's no magic in our world, but Fae come through a portal from fairy and bring magic with them. So that's my type of urban fantasy in the stories that I'm working on. But I also have a portal fantasy series, which is interconnected with the Penchant for Trouble series. So there's another world that uses a portal to come to Earth, and that story, instead of the Fae coming to our world, one of the people from our world goes to the other world. So it's interesting. And actually, if you read both series, you can read both completely without reading the other. You don't have to read one or the other first. But there are Easter eggs that you'll see from each to each other. Somebody might have an online friend that you might recognize, or that type of thing. So really, with all of my work, I'm going for like a Marvel Universe type thing where you see characters that you love pop up in all the different stories. So, and then epic fantasy tends to be more medieval times type fantasy. A lot of times there are magical creatures in those. Think like Tolkien and, like Ents and dwarves and elves. And so in epic fantasy, you almost nearly always have things that aren't in our actual world. But that's what I always grew up on. That was my favorite, and I always loved it. And I still have a super soft spot for it, though I do write urban more than I write epic. But I'm obsessed with dragons, so dragons are more of an epic fantasy type thing. So yeah, dragons show up a lot in the series I'm working on right now. Oh, that's epic fantasy.
Oh, that's so exciting. I love dragons. Yay.
Me too. What is it about them? I don't know,
I
but I
know.
just love them. Yeah.
Oh, and now that series that you're working on, remind me, do you have any of those books out yet, or is that coming later this year?
Yes, I have. So I have a short story out set in that world that kind of sets up the whole series. And in that series, Eris, who is a dragon hunter, and she actually kills evil dragons, finds a dragon egg, and then she wants to protect the egg and take it to these people that raise dragons to be actual like good citizens. But on her way there, she faces a lot of problems. So that sets up the actual series, which will hopefully be coming out in the spring because I still have Penchant for Trouble Book 5 I'd like to release this year. And so that would be next after that.
So exciting. And what is that series called?
That's the first book is called Kindled, and then the next book is called Fueled. So they all have fire type names.
I love that. Oh my
Yes.
goodness, so exciting. I just want to read them all like right now.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so in Regeneration, we meet Trisha, a girl who's had her share of challenges in the foster system. Okay, so, and we've already kind of had some conversations going in the comments, but I wanted you to answer it here as well. Share with us the inspiration behind including foster families in your books.
Yeah, so when I was a kid, even before I was born, my parents were already foster parents. So I had foster siblings all growing up. And I watched my parents give all the time, energy, their financial security, all of that to help these kids. And there's a lot of difficulty with it. You know, everybody always sees the difficulty on the foster kid side, which there is a lot. And I'm not saying that there isn't, but there's a lot of difficulty on the family side as well. And so not only were my parents wonderful, but I was in that world, so we knew lots of other families that fostered as well. And I just saw all these wonderful people just trying to help. And growing up, I'd watch all these movies and everything. And the foster families were always evil, and they only kept the kids because they wanted money and, you know, all of those things. And I mean, I do kind of get it because it's hard to have a reason for why a kid is out doing these adventures on their own without their parents. No real parent is going to allow their kid to do these things without them being there. So, I mean, I do understand why we got to that point, but I wanted to show a different side of with foster parents that loved their foster daughter and were trying to do everything they can to protect her and love her.
I love that. And I've had experience with foster families. We didn't foster, but we helped some who did. And so huge respect for families who are so amazing and doing such an amazing job with that because it's hard. It's so hard. And there's
It's
so
rough
many
work.
kids who need it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. All right. So, who have been some of your biggest author influences when it comes to your own writing? And if you could give aspiring authors one piece of advice, what would it be?
So my probably it's so hard to say your favorite author, but in my top three, Brandon Sanderson's in my top three, and I just not only love his work and respect his characters and his world building and all of those amazing things, but I also really like who he is as a person. He does classes that he puts online for other writers all the time, and he just helps everybody out. Even when he had his big Kickstarter last year, he used part of that money to go fund other people's Kickstarters, you know. So I really respect him as a person, and he is, yes, he is somebody that I really look up to and who I would like to follow in his footsteps in that area. So yeah. As for advice, I think the most important thing is just don't give up. You know, staring at a novel is an insane amount of words. Most of us are going to probably do like 1,000 words a day. You know, that's kind of high even. So it's going to take you months, if not years, to finish the first draft. That's okay. That's expected. That's good. it's too easy to just get discouraged when you see how far you still have to go. So you just got to chip away at it every day, just a little bit, do what you can, and you'll, in a year, you'll be surprised where you're at if you just keep at it. So yeah, basically just keep at it.
That's great advice because it is so easy to get discouraged. So, yeah, just know that it takes a long time.
It takes everyone a long time,
Yes.
except for Brandon Sanderson.
We're just going to leave him. He's in a whole other category,
Yeah,
you
he
know?
doesn't count. Everyone else, it takes a long time.
That's great. All right. Oh, we got somebody else coming in. All right. So, does your main character, Trisha, showcase any of your qualities or characteristics?
You know, it's actually funny you asked that because she's more the opposite of me, actually. She tends to kind of jump into things, you know, and figure things out later and that type of stuff. And I'm kind of the opposite. She kind of has a temper and she, you know, gets upset easily, where I'm the opposite. It takes a long time to get me upset. Once I'm upset, that's something else. But it takes a while to get me there. So, you know, honestly, I think I wrote Trisha as the opposite of me almost. She doesn't like to read. She, you know, all of these things. So I kind of just had fun with who somebody would be if they were not me. I think a lot of authors like to write a person that is kind of them, you know, and so I thought I'd experiment with the opposite and go far the other direction.
I love
I,
that.
I like to think some of her good qualities are mine, but you know.
Well, now, do you have a character who is more like you?
You know, I would think that after I said she was my favorite character, probably maybe Nina would be closest to me. That just tends to be mothering and want to make sure everybody's doing well. And yeah,
Oh, that's
yep.
great.
The caretaker is what my parents call me. So I guess, yep.
Oh, that's fantastic. So let's see. Let me look at what time it is. Okay, we're doing great on time. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you a couple more of my questions, and then I have some questions that some of our challenge participants had put in the group earlier. So
Okay.
I may kind of open it up in between and see if anybody here has a question. So those of you guys who are here, if you have some questions a brewing, get them ready because your time's coming.
Sounds good.
All right. So here is a question. In addition to your books, how can readers engage with you?
Yeah, so I have a website where I try to keep updated where I'm at with things. www.cassiegreutman.com. So you won't be able to spell Greitman. So go ahead and look in the Facebook group or whatever you'd like to do. I also am on Facebook and TikTok. I don't post as regularly as I probably could, but you know, life's busy and but I'll always interact with you if you shoot me a message or leave a comment or that type of thing, because I just love talking to people that enjoy reading. So yeah, come on out. And then I also do through my website just accountability coaching. So like if you are trying to write a book and it feels overwhelming to you, just you talk with me at the beginning of the week. We set your goals, figure out a nice healthy goal. Some people want to set it too low and then they don't achieve much. Some people set it high and get discouraged and then they just quit long before they get anywhere close to it. So we figure out how much time you have and how much, you know, you expect to get done in that time and set up some nice healthy goals. And then I just text you or send you an email or whatever and check in during the week to see where you're at and give you someone to say, hey, are you, you know, working towards your goal or not? So yeah, it's like fitness coaching, except for accountability for, you know, really it could work for anything, but mostly I've done it with writers and screenwriters. So
It's fantastic. So I love that you have that. And I love that you mentioned that because we do have some writers in our challenge group who have asked some questions about writing and the process and stuff. So I know that they will love to hear about that. I did put your website in the
thank you.
yeah, the chat here, whatever it's called, and
Yeah,
that'll be in the video as well.
great.
So Yay. So you mentioned screenwriter there. So have you done some screenwriting as well?
Yes, actually, I've done quite well at festivals and that type of thing with my screenwriting. So I'm all over the place when it comes to screenwriting. I have a small town foster family EMS story because I'm also a volunteer EMT. And then I have a sitcom set in a nursing home that's about a large family and how the poor aides that work at the nursing home have to deal with this huge family that one by one trickle in and move into the same nursing home. So things like these two brothers used to share a room as kids and they hated it, and now they're sharing a room again at the assisted living, that type of thing. And then I have a screenplay version of Penchant for Trouble, which I've had executives from the CW and Disney look at, but that hit right through the strikes and everything. So who that probably got shelved, but it was exciting to have someone looking at it. And so yeah, I really enjoy screenwriting as well. It's a completely different medium than novel writing. But I think when you get a firm grasp on one, you can learn to do the other.
That is so awesome. I am going to have to talk to you. We need to set up a time to chat about that.
Yeah, I'd love that.
So your others though, are they have they been produced and put out into the world?
The screenplays?
Yeah.
No, I've won the script writing contests at multiple festivals from Texas to New York, and I show up and keep my fingers crossed, and then and then about have a heart attack when my name gets called. But Old Timers, the sitcom, that's the one that's gotten the most traction. And I'm actually have been thinking about doing a Kickstarter or something, a GoFundMe, and raising enough money to just film. They call them POCs, so you just like proof of concept, and so you just film like 8 to 10 minutes of what your story would be about, and going from there, seeing if people enjoy it. So
That's so cool. We actually are about to have a film festival not far from where I live. It's the Abita Springs Film Festival, and I
oh,
saw
nice.
that they were doing that like 7 minute
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
yeah. So it's basically you try to tell a short story inside of the world that you would like to show the world, and you just use that short story to get people interested. So I've been kicking around doing that. So we'll see.
That's so cool. Well, Terry is saying that she loves the idea of the home, that one. You called
Thank
it
you.
out. What is the name of it?
Old Timers.
Old Timers. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. There's a lot of gags that I got from my siblings have worked in nursing homes. My grandpa's quite the character, so I have plenty of content. It could go on for 100 seasons, I think. All of the stories out there. And it's really a lot of it is the character growth of the one main nurse, because she's only working there until she gets through college, and she doesn't like it, and slowly she learns as she works there how important these things are in life, and how that job is actually quite an important job, even though it is a difficult one. And then she ends up finishing her nursing degree and then staying there anyway when she could move on. So there's a lot of different character arcs, forgiveness between the brothers who hate each other, and all those petty squabbles from when you were kids that come back out when you're old.
I love that. I hope to see that in real life one day.
Me too. Fingers crossed.
That's so great. Okay, so one other question from me, and then it's everybody else's turn. So, what is the one thing about the business of book publishing that readers might be interested to know?
Something I hear a lot is it's a marathon, not a sprint. And that's absolutely true. You see all these people that have their first book comes out, and they're a megastar all of a sudden, and they're a bestseller, and everybody's like, "Oh, that just happened for them so easy." When that's not true at all. You will work for years before you become really good at this, most likely. And maybe that's the first book that they sold, but they probably have 5 to 10 other ones sitting on their laptop that they that they will never go anywhere, because it's just like anything else. You don't pick up a violin and know how to play Mozart the first day. So basically, it kind of comes back to my other answer for about writing, is just keep at it. The person that's an instant hit, they probably have 10 years of work in there first, and that's fine, and that's the way it works. It's just difficult because you're working and working and working, and nobody sees all of the things that you're doing, and so it is difficult. But then you get that out to the world, and there's a lot of joy in just being able to share your stories.
Yeah, there really was. I know for me, I got to a point where I just wanted readers. I just
Hmm.
wanted someone to be able to share the story that I had fallen in love with. And
Yeah,
so that's just so cool in itself.
yeah. And now with indie publishing and everything, it's just life's completely different. My book, when actually had a couple of agents interested, but they wanted me to change things that I was very firm on not changing. And so I just decided to do it myself, you know. They wanted a love triangle in my book and that kind of thing. And I'm not really about those too much, you know. I mean, not for teenagers. I think it's overdone. And, you know, they wanted it to be more dark and everything. And I prefer hopeful books with people that care about each other, you know, not a lot of backstabbing, that type of thing, you know. So, I mean, I possibly could have had a contract somewhere, but I wasn't interested in doing what they wanted to make that happen. So, yeah, just the internet and everything has completely changed the world of publishing. And I truly believe that anybody that truly wants to make it can. So,
That's wonderful. That's so encouraging. Thank you for saying that. And kudos to you for sticking to what being true to yourself and true to your story as it should be. I love that.
well, thank you.
All right, so it's everybody else's turn to ask some questions. I do have a couple from some of our other challenge participants, but we'll get to those. So, and one of them is here, so Terry may just want to ask you her questions herself.
Perfect.
And y'all can either put them in the comments and I'll read them, or you just unmute yourself and just ask away. I feel like Jeopardy
I,
music should be playing.
right. I feel terrible because I missed the first part. Sorry, our Bible study went over a little long tonight, so
Oh,
I
you're
couldn't quite
good.
make it on time. But I would like to know because I'm sure I've missed this at the beginning, but I would like to know what it is that you're working on right now, and like what it is about it that that makes you want to keep writing it.
That's a great question. I'm actually one of those people that I'm working on multiple things at a time, just because I kind of get stuck in one place on something, and I need to let my brain work on the problem. So I work on something else for a little bit while my brain works on that. So I actually am working on 3 projects right now. Number 5 in the Penchant for Trouble series, which at this moment will be the last book, depending on how readers feel about that. It's the last I had planned with the series arc in the beginning. And then I'm also working on book 2. Storm of Magic just came out in May, and so I'm working on book 2 in that series. I love that one because it's a lot about the relationship of a lady and her young daughter. And so that's been fun to write, you know, how important kids are to you, whether they're your own kids or other kids, you know. So that's been fun to write. And then we talked just a little bit about my epic fantasy series. It's about a lady who rescues a dragon egg, and while she's trying to get this egg to these people that raise dragons, the egg kind of imprints on her, and so she ends up with the dragon she wasn't expecting. And so the short story for that is out, and you can get it for free if you sign up for my newsletter. But that leads into the actual series, which will have a lot more action than the cute little beginning, the short story.
I'm so excited about that. Okay, so let's see. Terry, I will ask your questions, and then Andrew's got a question here too. So let me get to Terry's. So she had 2 questions. Okay, so the first one, which of the characters you've written surprised you the most?
Oh, that's a good question.
That is a good question.
So it's a tiny bit of a spoiler, not too bad, but Trish runs into what is considered a monster in book one, and she was supposed to only be there for the one scene and scare Trish and her friends, and and she ended up actually being quite important in later books because she takes a shining to Trish and then she ends up helping her. And everybody's scared of this because she's a quite formidable monster, but she loves Trish because she thinks she's funny. So she ends up helping her. And that was the biggest surprise character I've had because she was only supposed to show up for a short time. But then I loved her so much that I had to rearrange some things that she could be in there more.
Yeah, characters definitely speak. Like they kind of take
Yeah.
over at times.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Y'all
Yeah.
think that we're the directors, we're really not.
Well, it's hard because you want your side characters to be just as cool as your main characters so they feel real, right?
Yeah.
But then you love them just as much as you love the others, and then you're stuck.
That's how book 3 of mine came out, with all the short stories about, all the other
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, all right. So Terry's other question is there a fictional character you hate that everyone else loves, or vice versa? And it doesn't necessarily have to be one written by you. And so who would this be? A character that everyone else loves and you hate, or vice versa?
Mhm.
And who is it and why?
That's a tough one. I know there are, but none are coming to mind at the moment. Give me just a second here. I tend to be too understanding sometimes. So sometimes I'm like, oh, I could see why they would do that. It's wrong, but I understand why. So a lot of times I do like characters that other people don't like, but I'm not coming up with one right at the moment. I'll think about it, and if I come up with one, we'll come back to it.
That's a good idea. So Andrew's got a couple of questions for us, and he's asking, where do you see yourself as a writer 10 years from now?
10 years from now, I would really like to have several series that are more expanded. Like I mentioned earlier, I'd like to be like Marvel, where you have different characters and they have their own stories, but then you have the Avengers where everybody comes together. So the plan is to have all these separate series and then have a series where there's some really big bad that they need everybody's help to get together and fight. So in 10 years, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Then you can see all your favorites in one spot and how they interact. And, I really feel like Trish and JLo would not get along great. So, it'd be interesting. And it would be a lot of fun. Also, I would like to be able to scale back some of my other jobs that I do and focus more on writing. So right now I'm in that weird zone where, I'm really serious about writing and I'm doing a lot, but most authors have at least one other job and I have two. So I'd like to just kind of tip that scale a little more towards the writing and scale back on my other work.
That's great goals. And then he also asked, do you ever put nods or homages to other fantasy works or authors in your writing?
Actually, Trish is quite into pop culture, so she brings stuff up in her thoughts quite often. And sometimes people get them, sometimes nobody gets them, and they're just me because it's some strange show that I just watched by myself and nobody else has ever heard of. I tend to like things that nobody else knows about. So, yeah.
Yeah, but there's going to be that one person, and they're going to be like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness.
There's someone else in the world.
Oh, that's great. All right. So who else has a question for Cassie? Anybody?
I do see in the chat that Andrew asked about music when I'm writing. It was earlier.
Oh, I missed that one. Okay, that's why he said 3. Thank you for finding that. Huh?
Yeah. So I used to not write with music because I found it distracting, but I've slowly switched that, and I listen to a lot of movie soundtracks while I'm writing. With headphones to block out the world because I get distracted easily. So lots of movie soundtracks. favorites being Lord of the Rings always. It has just some of the most gorgeous music in the world.
Yeah, I love that. That is definitely like I think especially if you're writing fantasy, like or
Mhm.
anything action or adventure, I feel
Yes,
like those yeah.
just big epic. I like the Braveheart soundtrack. That one's
Yes.
really awesome. Some
Yeah.
songs from Gladiator. I just have a mix on my computer that just plays over and over. Or on YouTube, you can find like look up Lord of the Rings ambiance, and it'll have. They're not all necessarily Lord of the Rings, but it'll be Lord of the Rings type music that go on for 3-4 hours. So
That's
I've done a lot of those too. The Harry Potter soundtrack's really nice. Even movies that I haven't watched before, I really enjoy their music, and I would be like, "Oh, I know that movie," but I don't actually know the movie, but I know the soundtrack.
That's great. Okay, so Faith is asking, piggybacking on the earlier question, how much do you feel you control your own plot?
You know, when I first started out, I did not write a plot at all. I just went in and played with my characters and had fun. That sets you up for all kinds of disaster later. So by the time I got to writing Regeneration, I had started plotting, and so I kind of swung the other direction, and I wrote a super big outline, had everything perfect, and then as I went through it, I'm like, oh, but I kind of like this a little better, and so then would have to scrap things and restart. So now I'm kind of in between, and I think I found my sweet spot where I have an outline. I definitely always know the ending before I get started, and I like to plot out an idea for the series so I can put in Easter eggs and smoking guns and stuff for later in the series. So you can be like in book 3, oh, I should have seen this coming because of book 2 and this, whatever. So I'm in a sweet spot in the middle now where I do outline, but a lot of times I just have in a document. I'd like this to happen at some point, this to happen at some point, and then I'll kind of move it around to where it fits the best.
That's great. I love that. I think that that is something too that I think every author figures out. They have to find their own way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because it's great to read like all these books that tell you how to do things or read about someone else's process or whatever,
Yeah,
but everybody's going to end up kind of piecing things together to make it what they need it to be.
everybody's brain works different, and that's a beautiful thing. But
Yeah. So I just love what Andrew said here about the music thing. He said that he once met a surgeon that would listen to Meshuggah of all things while performing operations, but swore up and down he didn't like heavy metal.
you do what you got to do to be able to concentrate, right?
I don't know if that's what I want my surgeon listening to.
You wake up with a headache and you're like, wow, what's going on? They didn't mess with my head. Yeah, that's hilarious.
All right. Well, we've got about 3 minutes left, so we still have time for questions. Does anybody have some more questions? You want them working on you. They're listening to that. I love it. Oh. Well, Cassie, is there anything else that you would like to tell us about? Anything?
Um, I'm working on a comic book for Penchant for Trouble. That's been really fun. And it's going to be enough different that it'll be fun for people who enjoy the book, but other people can read it too. And we're only like 5 pages into it right now. Writing the script, and then I hired an artist from Canada who is doing an excellent job. The pages are turning out beautiful, and I just love seeing it come to life. It's so cool. It's almost like a storyboard for the script that I wrote. So comics have to be slightly different than books. In a lot of books, we don't necessarily know who the bad guy is till the end, and you can have plot twists and stuff. That doesn't work as well for comics. You need to have your antagonist be a bigger part of things from the beginning and that type of stuff. So it is going to be different than the books, but the themes are going to be the same. The feelings, the characters, all of that's going to be the same. So I think it's going to be fun for people who enjoy the books and people who haven't read the books. And I know I'm having a ton of fun working on it with the artist. So
That is so cool, and I feel like that's probably going to bring in a whole new audience for you.
Yes, that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah,
And, we were talking about scripts earlier. They need proof that you can bring people in. So I thought, why not try another medium with the same story and see what happens?
that's fantastic. I love that so much. Every time I talk to you, I learn something new about you. We just need to have chats more often.
Yeah, that would be fun. Sounds good. Oh, and my favorite color, Andrew, is purple. I mean, check out that cover right there.
It's pretty
But
beautiful.
yeah, so each of the covers has a different color, but I started with my favorite.
Yeah, so
My
Rachel, I'm gonna need a red
mom.
cover at some point, just so you know. All right. Well, this has been an absolute blast. I love talking to you. You're just so wonderful. And I can't wait to read the rest of your books. I have read Regeneration and I can't wait to read the rest of them. But letting you guys know, let's see, I'm trying to think, like, what do I need to tell everybody? So we will still be with Cassie for a couple more days. So definitely come back into the group. So tomorrow, I'm gonna put a link. I can't even remember what the link is, but anyway, there will be a special link of a few different ways that you can interact with her moving forward. And then, of course, on Saturday we have our book selfies, right? And yeah, and then Saturday evening I will announce this week's winner. And y'all know from last week it was a tie, so y'all just keep posting, keep coming, showing up, all that kind of stuff, and racking up the points.
And I'll throw out there, if you have Regeneration and you don't want an extra copy, I will send you Storm of Magic instead, which is the
Oh,
first book in my new series. So
that's awesome. Yay. Well, thank you all so much for being here. Cassie, thank you so, so much.
thank you all. I really appreciate all of you taking the time